Public schools are the lifeblood of rural communities, where sport and theater and music and counseling and learning all happen. They're also the pipeline for a community's future. Its future leaders, workers, thinkers, business people. In the Adirondacks, that future is thinning out. The school-age population has plummeted over the last few decades, raising huge questions about the region's ability to restock its residents. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Long Run Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor in Lake Placid, providing comprehensive wealth management, retirement, and financial planning solutions. LongRunWealth.com. And the Devlin Inn and Suites, Lake Placid, welcoming families, athletes, and groups to the Olympic Village, offering Adirondack mountain views and dog-friendly accommodations. TheDevlinNY.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Wednesday, September 17th. First up, Governor Kathy Hochul got her COVID vaccine yesterday, and she says you should too. The governor got the shot at a pharmacy in Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan. She touted her executive order, allowing pharmacists to prescribe and administer the jab to those aged 3 or older.
Here in the state of New York, we actually believe in science. We believe in preventative measures like shots, and that we will not bow down to what the federal government is trying to impose on us.
Hochul's order came after the Food and Drug Administration approved the vaccine without a prescription, but only for those 65 and older or those with pre-existing conditions. But the governor's order didn't require insurance companies to cover the shot. Hochul says she can't do that without legislative approval. Researchers at SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry in Syracuse have discovered a rare species of bee in one of their orchards. Ellen Abbott with the New York Public News Network has more.
The chestnut mining bee has made its way to central New York. ESF pollinator ecologist Molly Jacobson discovered the insect in a grove of chestnut trees ESF is nurturing.
This is the first population upstate that really has ever been found in the historical record at all. And it's right in Syracuse, so that is super exciting.
Jacobson discovered it in a research orchard run by the American Chestnut Research and Restoration Project at ESF, meant to reintroduce blight-tolerant American chestnut trees into the upstate ecosystem. It's not a flashy insect, looks like any other kind of smallish or medium-sized brown bee. Jacobson says bees often get a bad rap, but this particular one doesn't like stinging people.
This chestnut bee is a solitary bee. It actually is incapable of stinging. It's a type of mining bee, and mining bees can't sting.
The chestnut mining bee is not an endangered species, but is critically imperiled in New York State. Jacobson says that makes this bee sighting very important.
So they are an indicator in that sense that we have a diverse, connected, functional environment around us that is able to support these species that really are really locked into one kind of resource.
In Syracuse, I'm Ellen Abbott for the New York Public News Network.
Public school enrollment in the Adirondack Park is down more than 40% over the last 45 years. That's led some schools to close their doors and others to merge with neighboring districts. In the latest issue of the Adirondack Explorer magazine, intern Brenna Sheehan dives into the data of declining school enrollment. She spoke with Emily Russell.
So you combed through enrollment data for all 52 public school districts in the Adirondacks. Tell me about a couple of schools that really stood out to you when you were looking at that data and how enrollment has changed over the decades.
Right. So I looked through a lot of different school districts. And of course, I feel like the biggest one that stood out to me was Newcomb Central School District. It's the smallest school district in the Adirondacks. And they saw a 73.2% drop in enrollment since 1980. Another one, the second most, was Clifton Fine, who saw like a 68.1% drop. And then two districts that I thought were really interesting to me were Long Lake Central School District, which was the third highest drop in enrollment school district since 1980. That's all a 66.7% drop. And then also Lake George, which saw nearly half of its enrollment drop since 1980. And what I think is really interesting about those two is that these are hamlets that are like touristy areas. You would think that maybe their populations would stay a little bit more steady. But of course, what we're seeing and what I've heard from district officials and local people is that housing has become more and more inaccessible.
Yeah. What does it look like for students in those school districts in places like Newcomb and Clifton Fine that have seen such a dramatic drop in enrollment? Like day to day, how has that impacted school for kids?
Well, luckily for a lot of these schools, this enrollment has happened very gradually. I mean, it seems kind of jarring hearing these numbers coming from 1980, but I mean, this has been over the course of 40 years. So what we've seen is, less teachers who take on more grade levels. A teacher I talked to over at Minerva is an English teacher for grades 7 through 12, meaning that he teaches an English class for every single grade, every single day. So what that means is for a lot of these schools is they might not have the opportunity to have any electives in class with like a different instructor. But that also allows room for, remote learning opportunities, online classes, which a lot of school districts in the Adirondacks are adapting to. Classes are getting smaller, they're becoming more intimate, and teachers are able to connect better with their students, which a lot of district officials that I talk to actually see as a benefit.
So tell me how that's playing out among students. Like, how are they doing and performing in these smaller districts?
So what you're seeing actually is they're performing data-wise. You see a higher graduation rate average among Adirondack school districts compared to the state average. And you're also seeing a relatively same or slightly higher core performance index, which is basically an amalgamation of standardized testing that the state puts out in these school districts. And a lot of that, again, is attributed to smaller class sizes, more intimate class settings. One superintendent I talked to, Candace Husson of Minerva School District, said it's hard to slip through the cracks.
So while students are performing better, higher graduation rates, there are some schools that have closed, some have merged, with schools historically being the center of communities, particularly in rural areas. You reported that enrollment could drop another 15% in the next decade. How are school leaders and teachers really thinking critically about that?
A lot of people, when they hear the term regionalization, which is a really big term in the rural school district community right now, think of that as schools dissolving, becoming bigger high school, longer drives for people to commute out to, and that's not the case. What we're seeing with these schools through their process of regionalization is sharing resources, sharing transportation, sharing sports teams, sharing professional development resources, like the True North school districts, which include Long Lake, Minerva, and other districts in that area. They're taking these resources, they're keeping their buildings, they're keeping their teachers, they are keeping the hearts of their communities in their communities, but are able to reach out and connect with other school districts to share the things that they can. I think the most important thing to understand about Adirondack school districts is that while they are facing declining enrollment, while they might not have the access to resources that a lot of other New York State schools have access to, they're overwhelmingly resilient. These schools are these little hotspots for community and have so much, local pride that you're not going to see them going anywhere anytime soon, at least not without a fight.
That was Brenna Sheehan, a news intern at the Adirondack Explorer magazine, speaking with Emily Russell. You can read her reporting in the latest edition of the magazine. We have more news all the time at our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Eddie Lawrence of Saranac Lake and David Archibald of Kingston, Ontario. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.